Computer. Terrific. We are recording. This is Kathy with Femme Salon, and I am so delighted to be sharing with you one of my favoriteest people on the face of the planet, Leah Weibel. She is a light, and she's a naturopath and stepping into her real genius zone as a medical intuitive. And our pleasure today is to have her share her wisdom about intuitive eating, because I believe all of us have this eating, this relationship with food. We all have a relationship with food, some of it more dysfunctional for some people other than others, and other times I think we've all at times experienced that challenge. So Leah, please tell us a little bit about yourself, how your relationship with food has been, and take it from there.
Well, okay, so I guess I'll introduce myself with my credentials. I don't always do that, but I'm a naturopath. I'm a diplomat of classical homeopathy. I'm a certified herbalist, and whatever I can pick up, I do, because the more the better, as far as I'm concerned. I've been practicing for 25 years, and I think at this time it's just we're all expanding into who and what our purpose is in a big, full way. And I just feel like I've got stuff to share now. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's terrific. So tell us, I know that you've had a path, an interesting path, a little different twist on relationship with food yourself. So what did that look like for you?
So at 13, I read the book Sugar Blues. And that became my Bible. I don't know if you read it. It was like back in the 70s, maybe. I mean, it was just like screaming, sugar's poison, it accumulates everywhere. And so societally, it's like, oh, you got to be thin. Twiggy was the model. And so, I mean, it fit, no sugar. And where sugar accumulated was in the fat. So I quit eating sugar, and I became a bit of a fanatic around the house. My family called me the blue bummer because I was terrible. I'd just like be so judgmental. And I was definitely fanatical. And what that turned into for me was I became over obsessed with eating healthy. I know there is a word for that. But because of my identification with sugar as poison, I began to look at food as poison or healthy. And I became very, very rigid in my thinking. So to the point of why eat? If there's nothing it has sugar in it, it doesn't fit this diet, then I just don't eat. I've become paralyzed. And so my journey has brought me to this place of understanding that no diet works for every body, because all of our bodies are different. And so that's my journey. And my journey is to help people to find their own well-being administrator. I heard that on some show. It was on in Denmark. They've opened up the schools, and the little ones were playing tag but touching the shadows instead of each other. And what her position was a well-being administrator. And I thought, I want one of those.
I think we all could use one of those.
We could all use one. So what if, we did designate a well-being administrator who becomes our intuition, that doesn't scold us, but loves us exactly how we are.
Yeah. And I have to first say, I'm sure there's a lot of people who've had relationships that are dysfunctional with food that would envy the one that you had. I'm sure they, lots of girls women that I've worked with are actually the other way, where they, bulimic or the overindulging, purging process, and all of them equally challenging on their own way, and devastating to get through. But to peel away those layers and get to the underlying causes of where we're going with that. So speak to that.
Well, I think, we particularly as women, you know, we hear diet and our eyes light up. This is the way. Tell me what to do. I mean, we have gone through, just to list some, we've gone through the South Beach diet, where you cut your carbs, you got lean protein, low fat dairy, and it was kind of a response to Heart Healthy, where fats got taken out of everything, but everything became high sugar because the flavor was gone.
Yeah.
So then came Mediterranean. Mediterranean's a valuable tool. Does it fit for everybody? No. People who don't live in that type of climate have that access to fish and fresh, you know, in the way that Mediterranean people eat. I don't think it's reasonable to say we're Mediterranean, therefore we should eat Mediterranean. Although it gives you good clues to healthy eating. All of these diets, I mean, they offer you an outline.
Right.
Here's some principles. And I think what's happened with all of these different diets, I mean, first was Atkins, then healthy Atkins, and that became, you know, the ketogenic, which is very valuable for a lot of people, but is really detrimental to other people because of the amount of protein. Not everybody can handle that amount of protein, and not everybody can handle grains. And how do you know? How do you know who you are in all of these, you know, different places?
Yeah. And keto's become such a rage. And like you said, it's incredibly valuable tool. I mean, for really changing, but you've got to do keto specifically and
Right.
to reap those benefits.
Yes.
So like you said, I would put it just down at the level with all these other diets to kind of piece apart and see what works for you. So tell
Right.
us a little bit more about how do we figure out who we are and what our,
Well, there we have clues. We have wonderful clues, and our bodies, our symptoms are really our way of looking. I mean, when we used to go to the doctor would look and say, wow, your eyes look kind of dull. You know, they'd ask you to stick out your tongue. Oh, your tongue looks kind of pale. You know, they would look at your complexion. You know, is it pale? Is it ruddy? Is it all of the things in our body give us clues to who we are. They're what make us wonderful and unique. And we're all snowflakes in that sense. And so the ways that I identify differences are eye color. The eye colors give us really good clues to who we are constitutionally. For example, a blue-eyed person would tend to be more lymphatic, over acidic. They may have more stress in their kidneys. So they would be someone who you would be concerned about doing excess amount of protein and fats. The other eye that you might see is a two-color eye. It's called a biliary with hazel. It's got a little kind of brown and then green. And that eye reflects challenges with your biliary system, gallbladder, liver, pancreas, the bitterness, the ability to break down fats. So that's another clue. Looking at your tongue. Is it red? Is it bright red? If it's bright red, that gives you an idea of internally you're hot. You don't want to add hot things to a hot constitution. You don't want to put chili peppers and ginger in a hot constitution because it'll further inflame. If you were a cooler constitution, you would want to do warming things like ginger. Cool constitutions look like a paler tongue, but there's, combinations. And how do you know? How do you know? So in 1995, a program came about and it was developed for eating disorders. And it's because of this, I think, obsessing with food and finding the answer. Because if food is the problem, the diet is the answer. But what if there wasn't a problem, so you wouldn't have to find an answer? The journey is the answer. So I'm just going to go through some of the principles, and they're really beautiful.
Because they're self-honoring again, right?
Yes, it is honoring. I mean, and the first rule is reject the word diet.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, it starts with the die, D-I-E.
Yes,
My
yes.
whole body, anytime I tried to think I'm to the point where I need a diet, it just goes, no. And it seems like every food on the face of the planet has been judged as bad at some point in time because all the diets are so conflicting. So I'm
Exactly.
so thrilled that you're going to help us kind of find our way through the maze. And wouldn't it be wonderful? She's inviting us, she's giving us the key to never have to diet again.
Or
Like,
at least use the word, at
yeah,
least not look for that solution and creating food as a problem. And I think
yeah,
that's the mindset, is that we label food outside ourselves as a problem. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I don't know if you're familiar with
yeah,
that, but it's like a little step ladder. And the basic need is food.
yeah.
Then comes the physical, the emotional,
Security
the
and safety,
yes, where
right?
you get care. So it's no wonder that food and emotional needs are tied up together, because they're right there, and we can pop if we don't have food, if we have too much, if we don't get our emotional needs, we go back to the lower step. It's really logical. We have those emotions and memories tied up with food as either being an enemy, a close friend that turns on you in the end, or something. It becomes something that has us rather than we have it.
Right. Ooh, juicy. So tell us.
Okay, so all right, so the next is to honor your hunger.
Mhm.
And the best way to do that is because if we don't eat in the morning, if we don't start something in the morning, late morning, our belly doesn't start getting those hormones. It's ghrelin. It's Gherlin. I can't remember how to say it, but it's the hormone that triggers hunger and also tells you you're full.
Mhm.
But if you don't feed that, then it doesn't get stimulated, but it doesn't mean that your blood sugar isn't going to crash. And that sends it into, I got to get something. The body is in fight or flight. So sugar, really easy for a crashing system. And our brain is screaming for that. Our brain says, feed me. And our brains need sugar. So finding ways to keep our hunger never from getting to that place. Offering it choices if you get to that place, like a couple of dates, because that feeds the brain real quick and offers you just that amount of time that you can put something more meaningful into your mouth.
Right. So is there a target time for people to have their first meal in the morning, or do different people have different
I
cadences?
think everybody has their own clock, but I think everybody needs to eat before noon.
Yeah, because intermittent fasting is happening right now. I
Absolutely.
think there's
And
always like the diet of the year kind of a thing. And
it
again,
is.
I mean, I am a super big fan of intermittent fasting. I think we need 12 hours rest, but if
Yes.
you stop eating at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, you can eat at seven
Yeah.
or 8 in the morning, and maybe
Right.
you're not hungry, like you said. Maybe like for me, I walk kefir in the morning, so afterwards is when I eat. But I always start with something. For me, protein is what my body wants in the
Right.
morning.
And
So
there you go. That's what your body wants. Someone else, maybe they need some fruit and veggies ground up. Maybe that's what their body needs first thing in the morning, is they need that, that alive food right there immediately. And like, we were talking about everybody is different, but I do think it's important to eat before noon. And that sets you up for, first of all, becoming aware of food going into your mouth the first time of the day, having a relationship, welcoming it, using it as, this is feeding my body, my spirit, my soul, and coming to that morning awareness of, thank you.
oh my gosh, as you speak those words, it just sounds like such a sensual, honoring
And
thing for us to do. I mean, the word break fast is,
yes,
breaking the fast from the evening. So just think of, I always think of, we used to say grace before we ate all these meals. Like, what if we
yeah,
could combine that with that first meal of the day? Like,
absolutely.
we're entering, I'm fueling my body for all the good I'm bringing to the world today. So
Yes,
I
yes,
love that.
exactly. Oh, good. And I think that feeds into making peace with your food.
Mm.
is that, like I was talking about, I have this love-hate relationship with food. When I eat something that, say, my thing right now is squash soup. Squash soup with sauteed shallots and some carrots and onions and veggie broth, and put in the pressure cooker, and that feeds me. I just go, ah. So
Uh-oh.
food, and we immediately go to, that's bad. I
Right.
don't, I feel guilty. I shouldn't do that. But what if we embrace that chocolate cake exactly the same way? We don't have to eat the whole cake, but like you were talking about, the sensual experience of eating is how I think we come to make peace with our food, because it's present moment of awareness of what's in our mouth. How does it make me feel? And maybe you don't notice how you feel until the very end when you're numb. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Embrace that. Embrace what is it that needed that hug. If we have to go numb, we understand that our body is crying. Our body is saying that it needs something. So we can look at it and say, I need a different tool. This isn't helping nurture me. And food is nutrition. Nurture, nutrition. It's, it goes kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, nourishing. I love it. Good.
The other one is, we were talking about satisfaction factor. Truly, I mean, really, if you can make it a full sense thing, eyes, nose, the sizzling of the cooking food, the way it tastes on your tongue. And I mean, we've heard a lot of times the tongue has different parts to it, the sweet, the bitter, well, it's all the same. It's all the same. Some people, however, their sweet overtakes their bitter. And so knowing that I just need sweet, 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 and that's all your tongue can taste, it requires a bit of a break.
It's almost like re-educating the tongue, isn't it?
It is exactly that. It is re-educating the tongue. We get new taste buds every 10 days.
Wow, that's good.
I know.
It's kind of like
But
a
that
new
doesn't mean
lover.
that our bodies don't still remember that feeling of numb. Remember that feeling of that taste in your mouth that will make you feel numb. But the awareness of that is huge. And then trying to substitute strawberries and blueberries and kiwi, choosing fruits that have a sweetness to it to retrain your tongue. Mm-hmm. Even becoming acquainted with bitter.
And
bitter
give
is
us
a
some
good
examples
way
of bitter flavors.
Bitter flavors are like coffee has a bitter, vinegar. Well, vinegar is a little bit bitter, but what else is bitter? Toast, char toast. Honestly, I'm not pulling up bitter.
Okay, well, we'll look some up and bring back that.
Bitters, there's Angostura bitters, which I often recommend to people that they use after a meal if their stomach feels upset. And you can even buy herb tinctures that are bitters. They're called digestive cordials. And so they have dandelion and milk thistle, things that kind of make you salivate in a different way. You finding clues for me?
I'm looking. So bitter foods that are good for you. Bitter melon. Let's see. Dandelion greens. I was thinking about you today because I was out and I saw a dandelion and you said all the pieces of a dandelion are edible. I was like, oh,
yes, dandelion would be a great bitter, a really great bitter.
Oh, green tea, citrus peel, cranberries, cocoa, coffee. Yeah, and then some melons. So
that's
interesting.
Great. So yeah, we can add those to our diet. Flavors that we don't usually taste. Like another interesting one is umami, which has always confused me. It's like, they've described it as MSG, which I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. But something like a rich broth, a rich meaty broth,
Mm.
like a miso or a chicken broth, it's that savory flavor that just kind of stays on your tongue, and you can taste it for, a good 30 seconds after you swallow. It just kind of lingers there.
Well,
So
even as
that's
you
another.
say it, I think that's got to be one of the most nurturing things is like chicken noodle soup when we're, after we've had a cold. It's that's what our
Mhm.
parents would give us when we had a cold. It's like
Yes,
we need to get back to some of those practices because it's actually like the grandmothers kind of knew these things, I think.
exactly. And we used to have so much more of a variety diet. We've gotten lazy. Not lazy. That's the
Just,
wrong word. That's
no, we're
judgment.
overemphasizing convenience
We
and
are.
speed. So
We
everything
are. And
comes.
we're eating for necessity rather than for nutrition, rather than for nurturing.
Yeah.
And it does take more work to do that. But it's one of Maslow's hierarchy, the base. How can we get to our self-actualization
Mm.
if we're not feeding our base?
Swing. That's a tweetable right there. All right. So you said sweet and bitter. What are the other tongue?
Sour. Oh, sour. Sour's another really good one.
Okay.
So lemon and, sour grapefruit and green apples. And what we can do is, even with the green apple, we can switch our sweetness. Um, um, if your sweetness level, I need a 10 to taste sweet, you can bring it down to a 2 with a green apple by eliminating the super sweet. And, I don't like to use the word eliminate, but if you can do an 80-20
Mhm.
rule where 80% of the time you're not eating white food, you're not eating food that has a long list of ingredients, because that's not really food.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to kind of distinguish. Is it convenient? Yes. Do we want to demonize it? No, absolutely not, because as soon as we declare it poison, that's what our body receives, is
Yeah.
poison. But
Yeah.
the 80-20 rule, there's no guilt, because guilt, the other thing I think which is interesting is the things that trigger food and eating issues is what we're experiencing right now in the pandemic. Isolation, anxiety, anger, sadness, loneliness, all of these things are triggers for our emotional well-being. And that's why I'm thinking, we need an administrator. We need an administrator to tell us, hey, you know what you really need is to move.
Yes.
That's the other part of this. Within intuition, there has to be movement, because if you're not moving, you're sitting and you're being sat on. Literally, you're being emotionally sat on sometimes when those emotions come up, the loneliness. Just moving can shift that. It doesn't mean leave that emotion. Say, no, I don't welcome you. We welcome it. We say, hello, loneliness. Let me hear you.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, I don't want to hear you, and I'm going to eat this bag of cookies so I don't hear you. But it doesn't mean that the loneliness goes away.
Yeah. And then we get to beat ourselves up because we ate the entire
Right,
bag of Oreos and now it's on
right,
our hips. So
right,
it's
right,
so much
right.
comes down to the judgment. And like you said,
Yeah,
I believe our bodies are miraculous and know exactly what to do with the Oreos when we eat them in the proper mind frame. But
yeah,
if we're doing it with like, uh-oh, I'm being bad, or
right.
I'm using it to stuff those emotions, then that's exactly what the body does. It does what we're
Yep,
instructing it to do. Like, help me
yep.
to feel this pain. It's like, okay, but
Mhm.
now, and it's interesting, like after you've binged like that, then like you've got an overabundance of food than more fuel than your body requires to spend. It almost makes it harder to then get up and move, or you just want to continue the
Right.
cycle.
Hmm.
So it's fascinating.
Because it's scary. It's scary. Jumping into a pile of emotion. And, we were talking about the linkage between emotions, memory, and food.
Yeah.
We were talking about the emotional memories keep us in a mindset. Is it happening now? The circumstance is the memory. And understanding the circumstance is different. And checking in, where is the circumstance different? And am I reacting from a place of a child? And if I am, it means my base needs. I need some base need to be met. I need to be hugged. I need to be, I need something which feeds my heart and soul, not something which shuts me down. It is a message, I think, from our deepest intuitive self. It's the one that cries the loudest.
Yeah, if you'll allow the listen. And I like how you're saying, because sometimes certain smells can connect us back to that heart space that we felt. And like you said, oftentimes when we're earlier, what I find is like pumpkin pie is one of my trigger food, but I can do the same things using pumpkin pie spices, and I put it into all kinds of different things and get the same connection and inner hug without eating a pumpkin pie. So it's like we can get creative,
Right,
recognizing
right.
the pattern of the emotional
Exactly.
connection
Exactly.
of that smell, or maybe it's ice cream.
Mhm.
There's other versions of a healthy ice cream that you can indulge in, enjoy it, and reap the emotional benefits of connecting. Like, wow, my mom and I used to go to Dairy Queen after gymnastics. That was a great memory. But now I can make
Yes.
it, a good
Yes.
nice cream with bananas, which I love. So super good.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for self-discovery.
Yeah.
A book that I would recommend for everybody is, can you see it? Life-Changing Foods.
Oh, yeah. The medical medium.
The medical medium, Anthony William. And this just opened me up to the spiritual and emotional nature of using foods for healing. So like cucumbers, cool as a cucumber. Think about their soft, cool fleshiness. That's what it does for us. It keeps us cool, emotionally cool. It keeps us hydrated from the inside out. And I mean, I'll tell you, the cucumber is amazing. But then there's some people who can't do cucumbers, and because they don't need that lesson, or it's so interesting. Let me tell you about apples.
Oh, I'm
Apples,
an apple a day girl. I love the Honey Crisp.
yeah, me too. So yeah, I love the apples, and apples are in season almost all the time except for in the middle of the summer. So they're always a good seasonal choice of foods. So the emotional support is the apple is an ancient food that brings us back to the source. It is one of the very first foods to have comforted us. And so apples connect us to a sense of sanctuary. This makes them ideal for when you're feeling depressed, alienated, invalid, powerless, useless, worthless. You get the idea. If the time ever comes
Yeah, I better
when you
go have
feel
an apple.
you know, right? Like everybody needs to be eating apples. Apples. So they open up a part of you and change the energy within and around you to attract happier and brighter things.
Ooh.
So and then there's a spiritual lesson too, and the apples teach us not to get burned by the frost of insensitivity from others. I mean, huge, right? And I think that innately we know we're drawn to something. Our spirit knows the spiritual nature. Our emotion already knows what it needs from that. And so the idea of visual and olfactory are so important in giving us clues to what we need. And the way he uses them, he really uses food therapeutically. So apples, if you need apples, like you can eat 10 in a day and get what you need. I just think it's beautiful because food is our medicine. It is the one thing that we do sometimes have control over, and maybe control is the wrong word. It is the one thing that makes us all connected.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to say it. Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited.
I love that of you. Awesome. So where do we go from this?
Well, I guess, I would, I don't know.
I have a
I don't
question
know
for you.
what, yeah,
So I believe that we become alienated from our body and don't trust the signals that it's giving us because we've had different emotional things. Oftentimes, I mean, I work with a lot of women who've had some kind of trauma in the past. So at that moment in time, I believe we step out of the body because we don't see it as safe. Like how can we heal those past wounds to come in so that now we can just ask the body what it wants to eat. I mean, my body
yeah,
and I talk all the time. So, I mean, sometimes it'll give me complete sentences and I sense like obviously bodies don't talk in words. Well, sometimes mine does, but, oftentimes it's feelings. So how can they begin to lean into mending the relationship or begin to hear what the body is actually asking if it's been so long that they haven't been communing with the body?
I think that journaling is a great way to set up a communication and look at this as a journey. It's an exploration. It's like finding clues in a journey, a scavenger hunt. It's finding where things are stuck and having an outlet. Journaling is great. The other thing that is really helpful is because you do need to stay in your body to be able to hear, and the first thing that we do, a lot of us do, is that we leave. It's too uncomfortable, I'm out of here.
Mhm.
So I mean, this sounds kind of funny, but body brushing is a great way to get back into your body. Just using a soft bristle brush, and brushing upwards on your legs, going upwards towards your heart, downwards. But the softness and the texture, it brings you into your body.
Cool. And a body brush is something you can get anywhere, right? Like
Anywhere,
acupunctures or whatever.
anywhere,
Yeah, and
just
it literally is like a brush with on a
yeah,
stick so that you can reach
you
around.
can
But
reach
yeah.
everywhere. And it is, it's a wonderful way, first of all, to get your lymphatic system moving,
Mm.
because our skin is our third kidney. We excrete uric acid from our skin. So it's a wonderful way to get everything moving. Also helps nourish the oil glands.
Yeah, and so the function of the lymphatic system is to get all the toxins out, and it doesn't have a
Right.
pump of its own. So something like that, along with moving, I mean, it's looking for our
Right.
body to move. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard the skin described it in that way.
And then we can also try to look at groupings of feelings.
Mhm.
If we have a generalized feeling of agitation and irritability, we can ask, is it physical? Is it emotional? Sometimes the physical will drive the emotional, sometimes the emotional drives the physical, and it goes down to the liver. The liver is the angry organ. So we can come back and say, oh, liver, let me support you. Have some dandelion, have some milk thistle. And so you love on the liver, which is holding the agitation and anger. And rather than saying, stop feeling like that in an angry way, you say, I love you, I love you, I love you.
Mm.
Looking at, heart. Does your heart hurt? What are the foods that feed the heart? Think about what feeds the blood. Red, cherries, and blueberries, and strawberries, and beans, and feeds the blood, feeds the heart. And you welcome it, and you say, nourish me. Food can hold the vibration of what we choose, but by grouping our emotions into sort of categories, we can assign it to an organ support. Lungs. Lungs are survival. If we have been in fight or flight forever, then our lungs may be affected. So we find ourselves in fear a lot. How can we soothe that? We can feed the lungs cooling, soothing, things like slippery elm and mullein and soothing, cooling herbs, but we can breathe.
Mhm.
Think about just breathing. Before, air, we kind of need air.
Yeah,
And
before
what we
food.
stop doing when we're in fight or flight is breathing. We breathe to this upper portion. We don't breathe to the lower portion. So what I find with people is oftentimes right in where the solar plexus is, there's a button. And it's the button that opens the diaphragm. And if it's sore, it needs to be rubbed open, literally in a tight circle. And what it does is it releases the diaphragm, the lungs drop in, and you can expand your chest. So there again,
Want to
you
show
have
us that because like right now we're filming this during the pandemic. So like you said, we are all under this monster wave of this anxiety like that. Can you just go up a little bit more and show
Okay,
us how to
let me,
that?
does that work?
Yep, right there.
Okay, so right here,
Yeah, circular.
here's pubic bone, there's ribs, solar plexus.
Okay.
So where you want to rub, and what you want to do is when you don't want to hold your breath, because these are our abdominal muscles that link like this.
Okay.
So when we take a breath out, rub very, 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 very hard in a circle until you can't take it. And then
Oh, that's a good one. And I would imagine that anytime we're stressed or we've had an emotional, wave of anger or something like that, that can get locked up.
Yep, it gets locked up. So that releases it. So physiology is so important. We can't divorce our body from our emotions, from our spirit. We can't. We are 5-dimensional. And we have to nurture all of those pieces. And so looking at ourselves more than just a carbon life form, body needs food. Trying to feed
And
all
to
of
try to
ourselves.
calculate with the macronutrients and this, that, and the other thing, it's like, we're not. Yeah. So tell us about the thymus, because I do something for the thymus. Tell us a little bit about that.
The thymus is another good way to stay in the body, because if you're aware of muscle testing is another great way to build a relationship with food. And so starting with patting your thymus and making sure you're well hydrated. And some people do the sway test. I use my fingers together like this, and I hold them tight, and I use this, and I ask, is my name Leah? It's locked. Is my name Kathy? Oh, well, I'm glad I'm not Kathy today. I think I'm good being Leah. Is my name Leah? And so whatever I hold then, because everything has a radiant energy, I can build a relationship. Take my phone. Oh, that blows my energy out. So you can do that in the grocery store. You can do that with anything. And I find sometimes I test strong for Twinkies. I'm a big believer in the Twinkie theory. You have to have a certain amount of toxins or you die. Too clean.
Well, it is, and I think in America we've kind of gone to the extreme clean kind of a thing. It's like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the idea.
Our bodies are so amazing. The immune system is meant to take care and keep us in a state of homeostasis and health. So, I think we need to, well, like Josh Axe's book, Eat Dirt, we need to get back to some of that. The processed foods don't avail us to that. So
I think along, with retraining, with slowing down your eating, macrobiotic, all of these diets take a piece of something so meaningful. And macrobiotic, the idea is very much that you take your time with eating, that it is a meditative process, that it's an important part of your day, and they look at foods regionally. Eat what is in your region, eat seasonally. So all of these diets have meaning and value. I think it's the paleo that really focuses on exercise and hard exercise. So people who do benefit from that, that release of pushing hard, then that is a way to keep their body in balance and set up their cravings for something that feeds them, because they're feeding themselves with the type of exercise that makes them feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be one of those that requires a higher level of intensity than a lot of people would enjoy, but I love it.
Uh-huh.
My body loves that. It brings it alive.
Do, do,
What's that?
do you find that after you exercise, we froze. Do you, do you find that after you exercise hard that you're drawn to, what are you drawn to? Tell me what you're drawn to after you.
Foods. Yeah. Healthy
Yeah.
foods that I usually want protein, and that might be a mental thing that I read that you're supposed to, have that within 45 minutes, but usually protein and greens. So that for me is my trifecta is I eat a lot of greens and protein and fruits as snacks in between. So I do like grazing. I know other people.
Yes,
I think that's another one of those fads that we got
it is.
overly
It is.
reliant on, is that we've got to eat every 2 hours. It's like, no, the body
Right.
wasn't designed
And
to
that's the part of
constantly.
honoring your hunger.
Yeah.
Honor your hunger and stop before you're full, because it's that hormone, that ghrelin, whatever it is.
There, ghrelin. I think it's ghrelin.
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 Ghrelin. That doesn't kick in sometimes while you're eating. It doesn't stop until 15 minutes after, and at that point you're uncomfortable. So I think it really is about building relationship, which is what we're doing with ourselves every day in every way, is we're trying to build a better relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. That, and the other day you mentioned some of the things, if we're commonly reaching for chocolate or other foods, we might actually have a nutrient deficiency. So I know chocolate is magnesium, which so many people are. I mean, talk about some of the common nutrient deficiencies.
So beer, cravings for beer.
I was gonna say beer's a nutrient deficiency.
Yes. Well, people crave beer, and it is a zinc deficiency.
Zinc, awesomeness.
Zinc deficiency. People who can't tolerate citrus, for example, they have a B vitamin deficiency. So we, our bodies are always trying to find the best possible solutions. The other thing to pay attention to is color. Even if you're drawn to an artificial color, what is that color telling you? What is the color telling you in your brain? What is that trigger for you? Like bomb pops. Blue foods are hard. Blue foods are hard. I guess you could put blueberries in there.
Awesome. So beer, that's a good one. But that, so there's other health fads, let's say, like people go and get it's waning right now, but when they were getting the vitamin B shots, and they're doing that at workplaces and giving everybody B shots to have more energy. I'm like, I don't understand sometimes.
Well, yeah, that came about back in, I don't know, maybe it was the 50s. They gave women B12 shots postpartum, and it lifted depression. B12, they say, is one that can be absorbed sublingually, but through the fat is the best way. But the only people who need that are people who have intrinsic factor, which is an iron binding problem. They don't bind because they have a problem with the B12. So the only way that they can get B12 is through injection. Otherwise, they're anemic. But I mean, we can absolutely overdo vitamins. Mostly we just pee them out, but our skin and our our tongue will tell us when things are right or not. If you're eating, your tongue starts out nice and cool looking, and you have a ginger beer, and you look at your tongue and it's bright red, your tongue is saying, this isn't working for me. So paying attention to all of these types of clues. And I will put in, for our girls, I'll put in pictures of the tongue, pictures of the eyes, so that everyone can look at their eyes and go, huh, this is a good clue for me.
Well, tell us a little bit more, because I don't think a lot of people have been exposed to iridology before. And to me, it's so fascinating. So she could take a picture of your eye and tell you based on the stripe.
Oh, that was actually pretty good. Yeah, no kidding. That was really good. You have green eyes.
And they're kind of, yeah, hazily. So I got those multi-dimensional things going on. But tell us a little bit more about iridology.
So,
I just think it's
iridology, similar to reflexology. You'll be able to see organs, or I guess you won't see them, but they're reflected in the eyes. So all of the organs throughout the body, and it sets up in the eye in a clock fashion. So the top is the head, 6 o'clock is the bottom of the body, leg. Outside is the skin, and the very next to the pupil is the stomach area. Most people, you can see there's like a little gray, or some people have white right next to their pupil. That gives you an idea of what's happening in your digestion. And then what I look at is the fiber, which is like spokes of a bicycle. The tighter the fiber, the better the inherited health. With, I don't know, I got this picture. Would be a good example. Here it is. Sorry. So, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you can see that some of the fiber is tight. And then you can also see the different colorations and what looks like closed circles are inherited weaknesses. I think this one here, I don't know if you can see the little closed circles in it.
So are these different samples are on the thing, or is that's not?
Yeah, this is all. But in this one here, so what I look at is in the organ area, is there inherited weakness? If there's an inherited weakness, I know that that organ is your Achilles heel. We all have Achilles heel, but knowing what's happening inside, because it reflects in the eyes sometimes before you have symptoms in the body. So knowing what are your, like we were talking about color, a blue-eyed versus a brown-eyed, but what are your unique characteristics in your eye? Because our eyes are just like our fingerprints. And they reflect not only our physicality, but our emotions, which is amazing. I can see inherited patterns from mother, inherited patterns from father. But the eyes really, really are the windows. They really, really are.
Well, and then we might have inherited predispositions from parents, but that doesn't mean that we need to follow in their footsteps, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But we can all, I mean, not but, we can see sometimes energetic health patterns.
Right.
And it's not necessarily genetic, it's energetic.
Yeah.
That can be cleared. Yes, it's expressed in the eye, but it doesn't mean it has to express genetically.
Yeah.
You know, particularly the things that I see with the inherited weakness, that wasn't something that you created in this lifetime. This is something that comes from the past. So it's a really wonderful way of clearing that energetic imprint.
So when we talk about preventative health to some extent, like this is preventing even before anything like any kind of symptom, the body's giving us symptoms or signals of imbalance. She's actually able to go take a picture of the eye and find almost like the irregular, the energies that just aren't pointing towards balance there, and then support it with, like, say somebody's got an underperforming liver or their digestion is weak. She's able to go in and give herbs long before it actually is anything extreme like IBS or all these other things that can happen in the digestive tract. But it's fascinating. And I hope my dream would be sometimes, we talk about us as alternative health practitioners, and I would like this to be the absolute first place that people turn when they
rather than the last.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
good.
But we'll take whatever we can. Any opening is an opening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, that's true.
Any opening is an opening.
Awesomeness. Well, great. We are going to share. some of the pictures and charts for La Femme Salon, and how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to maybe make an appointment for themselves?
Can I give my phone number?
Of course.
Okay. Phone number is 303-710-9032. And I'm here. I'm ready to work.
You're ready for it.
I'm so ready to work. I've got to figure out how to do the eyes online. I just have to.
Yeah, and we can get beyond that.
That's the next step.
I just have to say one more thing about Leah. So we've done some wellness events together, and I just love speaking to people after they've gone up to her table, because they'll be like, I just walked up to her and she told me I had a zinc deficiency and that I should eat. What would you eat for zinc?
Oh gosh, trace minerals. I don't know.
Yeah. One more question I know that people will have is about taking supplements. Do they need to take a general multivitamin supplement? I personally think we can get it all from food, but I think
I think we can get a lot from food. I really do. I do believe that food is our best medicine, but because we're snowflakes, we may have issues digestively. We don't digest fats particularly well, so maybe we need to take an enzyme so that we do. Things like that, to support what we do need if we're not able to absorb.
Yeah, and that's what you'll help them to do, is help
Yep.
them, in that consultation with looking at the eye, which can drive the conversation with the body of what needs support. And for now, it might be a temporary thing. It might be a
Absolutely
circumstance we're passing through right now, but once the body achieves balance again, you may not need it for long. And it might be dandelion. It might be
yeah. I'm really into dandelion right now.
Yeah. And I love that you work both with the physical and the emotional thing. So a homeopathic remedy might look like something that's helping peel off layers of grief. With the lung, you're also doing your little rubbing. So it's kind of a multi-dimensional kind of healing that you'll experience if you work with Leah. So anyways, thank you for sharing your gift. I adore
Kathy,
it. And
I adore you too. Big hug. Big hug.
Awesome. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to end